The Varnak had hunted many species before. It was a sport to them, a game, a way to show dominance. On the outside, they were civilized, part of the Galactic Council, dressed in silk and gold. But behind closed doors, they played with life like children breaking toys. Zara didn't know she was being watched. She walked through the alien forest, scanning samples, logging data, smiling quietly to herself. Earth's science vessel Aurora had sent her and 2 others to explore the untouched planet called Graal 9. The air was thick but breathable, the trees tall and covered in glowing moss, beautiful and dangerous. Then it happened. Her comlink hissed a scream, one of her team gone, the sound of a stun shot. Then silence. She called for help, but the signal was blocked. Her eyes widened as she saw shadows moving through the mist, large armored shapes, Varnak hunters. They didn't speak, they didn't explain, they just shot her with a paralyzing dart and laughed in their deep, gravelly voices as she fell. One said something in their native tongue. The translation implant clicked. This one will run. Good. More fun that way. Zara woke up with a splitting headache. Her gear was gone. No tools, no weapons. Just a small tracker implanted under her skin, blinking softly. She was no longer a guest of the council. She was prey, a target in a twisted hunt. But the Varnak made a mistake, a big one. Zara wasn't just a scientist. She had trained with Earth's survival corps before joining Aurora. She had passed desert trials, mountain tests, and isolation simulations. She knew how to disappear, how to hide, how to strike back. Her breathing slowed. Her hands found sharp stones. Finds she remembered every lesson. The pain in her legs didn't matter. She was awake, no inhumans. When cornered, don't beg. They adapt. The Varnak watched from a distance. 6 of them, laughing through their thick helmets. One of them placed a bet. She won't last. A day. Another chuckled. Let's make it fun. No guns for the first hour. They thought they were in control. Zara moved fast. Quietly. She left fake footprints in the mud, climbed a thick tree with bark that peeled silently, and wrapped leaves around her arms to hide her scent. She was hunted, yes, but not helpless. She found a narrow canyon with a sharp drop above it, a hanging branch. A plan formed in her mind. Back at the Aurora, alarms were starting to sound. Commander Ruiz noticed the team's signal had gone dark. All 3 biosignals gone. Then, 30 minutes later, Zara's signal returned, but from deep inside restricted Varnak territory. No message, just a ping. Ruiz's eyes narrowed. Get me high command. Now, in the jungle, one Varnak split from the others, overconfident. Following the tracker signal on his visor, he stepped under the branch Zara had weakened, laughing as he raised his scanner. Snap, the branch fell, knocking him down the canyon. He didn't scream, but his armor cracked when he hit the rocks below. Zara didn't smile. She didn't celebrate. She kept moving. She didn't know it yet, but Earth had already launched a Raven-class stealth ship. Quiet, fast, invisible to the Varnak's old sensors. It had one mission. Bring back the humanor. Bring down those who took her. The Varnak kept hunting. Their laughs grew quieter. The jungle, once loud with bugs and wind, now felt tense. Like something was watching them. Something angry, Zara whispered to herself as she tied a spear from stone and wood. You hunted the wrong species. The camera cuts to black. A soft sound echoes, metal scraping against bone. Then a final whisper. She was hunted for fun, but humanity never forgets. Asterisk, a strange silence had fallen over the forest. The Varnak were not used to silence during a hunt. Usually, there were screams, panic, creatures running, stumbling, begging. But this time, the forest felt different. The trees stood still. The air felt heavier. Something had shifted and, though they didn't admit it aloud, the Varnak hunters felt it too. They had lost contact with one of their own. His locator beacon blinked once, then stopped. No warning. No sound, no final words, just gone. Maybe his come failed, one suggested, or he fell. These cliffs are tricky, said another, but deep inside they knew. Something was wrong. Zara was watching them from above, from the thick branches of a tall tree covered in green moss. She had climbed it silently, hidden behind thick leaves, motionless for hours. Below, 2 of the Varnak walked slowly, scanning the area, confused and cautious now. She had studied them. Their patterns, their steps. Their overconfidence. She didn't move, not yet. She just waited. Far above the planet, in the cold of space, Earth's stealth ship had arrived. No one knew it was there. Not even the Varnak satellites could detect it. The ship was called Whisper and its mission was simple. Locate Zara and assess the situation. Inside, Captain Ellen Rowe studied Zara's weak signal on the main screen. It flickered, buried deep in the jungle. The data showed movement, but no distress call. Why hasn't she sent a message? One officer asked. Captain Rouse's eyes narrowed. Maybe she's hiding, or maybe she's not alone, another said. They didn't send a full army, not yet, just a small ground unit. 2 scouts, quiet, fast, skilled, dropped far from Varnak sensors. Their goal, find the truth. Back on the planet, Zara moved through the jungle like a shadow. She avoided open paths. She drank from small streams. She listened more than she walked. Her training came back, sharp and clear. Every noise mattered. Every track told a story. The Varnak were spreading out now, but slower than before. Less laughter, less confidence. One of them found a trail she had left on purpose, a broken branch. A shoe-print hand followed it eagerly, but the trail ended at the edge of a deep pit filled with thick vines. He looked around, confused. A soft rustle above. A bird, a falling, leafy turned. Nothing. Still. He felt watched. Zara had already moved on, further into the forest. She wasn't just surviving now, she was learning. She was beginning to understand how to move through this world better than they could. At the same time, the two Terran scouts landed far from the Varnak outposts. They were dressed in adaptive suits, invisible to sensors and nearly invisible to the eye. One of them, a woman named Vega, found faint energy traces, residual marks of a drop pod. Human tech. Direction matched Zara's last known location. She's alive, Vega whispered. Or someone wants us to think so, replied her partner. Back at the Varnak base, reports started to arrive. Missing hunters, damaged sensors, movement they couldn't explain. One commander frowned. It's just a human. How is this happening? No one had answers. The hunters were now being hunted by silence, by fear, by something that didn't match the stories they'd heard. And still, Zara moved through the forest, building her small map in her mind. She remembered the layout from satellite images on the Aurora. She remembered a river, a hill, and a large cave system to the north. She needed higher ground, a signal boost, a way to reach out, but every move had to be quiet, careful, measured. She found the broken edge of an old Varnak out, a small tower, now overgrown and abandoned. From the top, she could see the stars. She climbed slowly, watching for signs. Halfway up, her tracker blinked again, then glowed blue. Unknown signal nearby. She froze. It wasn't Varnak tech. It was Terran. Someone was close. She stayed hidden. In the shadows of the tower, as one of the scouts passed below, she didn't call out. She didn't take the risk. She waited to be sure. Humans could be careful, but so could enemies wearing stolen gear. The scout paused, checked a scanner, looked up at the tower for a long second, then walked away, waving a small object behind on purpose. Zara waited 10 minutes, then climbed down. It was a beacon Terran made, low power encrypted. She activated it with a short tap, and a small green light flashed once. Then again. It was enough. High above, on the whisper, Captain Rowe saw it. She's alive, and she's sending us a message. The signal was simple but powerful. Do not extract. I'm not finished yet. Zara didn't want to be rescued. She wanted to finish what the Varnak had started, not with anger, not with fire, but with something stronger, memory, because the truth was simple. She remembered everything. And soon, the galaxy would too. The jungle winds moved slow that night, as if the air itself had paused to listen. Zara stood near the edge of the ancient tower, her eyes locked on the horizon. She had sent the signal, a simple blink, a low-power beacon, but she knew its meaning would be understood by the right people. And far above, it was the stealth ship. Whisper, still cloaked against every sensor in orbit, hovered in silence like a thought unspoken. Inside, Captain Rose stood with her arms crossed, eyes fixed on the blinking green pulse on the screen. It was short, but the message was clear. Zara was alive, and she had a plan. She's not asking for rescue, said one of the officers, puzzled. She's sending us a warning, Rowe replied. The ship moved lower, carefully avoiding detection. It released another scout team, this time with different orders. They weren't to retrieve, they were to observe. And wait. Back on the ground, Zara continued to move through the forest, avoiding the main paths. Her steps were slow, quiet, each one chosen with care. The vines around her legs tugged gently, the air filled with the distant calls of alien creatures that hadn't yet learned the danger of being too loud. The Varnak were growing uneasy. Their hunters hadn't returned. Their tech scanners picked up strange interference. Their confidence was starting to fade. This is not how it should be, one whispered to the other. Perhaps she is not alone, another answered. But the truth was worse than they imagined. She was alone, and that made her more dangerous. Because Zara was not focused on escape. She was focused on understanding how they moved, what they feared, what tools they used. She had mapped their routes, identified their signals, and learned how their systems worked, all by watching. And now, with Earth listening, she had something she hadn't had before, support in the shadows. Unknown to her, Earth had activated a wider net. Several monitoring satellites had quietly gone live, listening, watching, feeding data directly to Whisper and Earth's command center. What they saw confirmed a pattern. Varnak hunting wasn't rare. It wasn't an accident. This wasn't the first time it had happened before on small planets, with small species. No military, no voice. But this time, they had taken someone from Earth. The consequences of that choice were just beginning. Zara reached a small clearing where sunlight broke through the trees. In the center stood a strange device Varnak built. Tall and curved, humming softly. A sensor station, used to track movement. She recognized its structure from earlier scans. She studied it, slowly walked around it, then took out a small tool she had crafted from stone and metal scraps. One piece of the sensor's panel had rusted. She placed her fingers there, gently lifting the casing. The circuit inside blinked. She didn't destroy it. She adjusted it, reversed the pulse. Now it would report false data make. It seemed like she had gone the opposite way. By morning, the Varnock would send more teams, far from where she really was, and, when they did, she would no longer be walking alone. The Terran scouts had been tracking her quietly. They had seen the beacon. They had seen her move like she belonged to the forest. One of the scouts, Vega, watched from a distance and whispered through a tight cum line, "She's building something. Something careful." Captain Rouse's voice came back, steady and calm. "Let her." Meanwhile, deep in Varnock territory, inside their command base, questions were growing louder. A leader named Vroron stepped forward. She should have been caught within hours. Why hasn't she? No one answered. Some wanted to call for help from the council. Others feared what that would look like. A Varnock hunting team losing control. A council inquiry that would bring shame, and worse, change. So they chose to hide it, even as the problem grew. Back in the jungle, Zara reached a riverbank. The water was clear, cold. She drank slowly, then sat on a fallen log, watching the moon rise through the canopy above. Her face showed no fear. Only thought. She reached into her jacket, still torn and stained, and pulled out a small piece of cloth. It had a name stitched in it, Aurora, a reminder of where she had come from, who she was, a human. One life among billions. And yet, everything had changed because of her. She had become the moment Earth remembered, a single spark, across the stars. In quiet places where diplomats talked and scientists wrote, humans were starting to whisper the story. A human taken, a game played in shadows, a forest turning silent. And behind those whispers, something else was growing, resolve. Because Earth didn't shout, Earth remembered. And when Earth remembered, it acted. Zara stood once more, her body tired, her mind focused. She walked along the riverbank, the forest shifting around her. In the distance, a small light blinked, barely visible. Another signal. Another step in the plan. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. Earth was coming. The Varnock High Command believed silence meant safety. But in the quiet, something far more dangerous was building. Understanding. Zara had not only survived, she had adapted. She was no longer just moving through the forest. She was shaping it, guiding the enemy without them realizing. A shift had taken place. This was no longer their hunt. It was something else now, something unfamiliar to them. The forest had grown colder, not in temperature, but in feeling, the kind that made even trained hunters pause before taking a step. The animals no longer sang. The wind passed through the trees like a whisper, uncertain of its own path. Zara crouched beneath a thick branch, brushing her hand across the soil. Tracks deep and heavy moved westward. She had guided them well. The altered sensor pulse had done its job. Two of the Varnock hunting teams had followed the false path, leaving gaps in their formation. It was working. But time was short. A message from the Terran scout Vega had reached her 2 hours earlier. Anya encoded, hidden in the light pattern of a Firefly drone. "You're not alone. The sky listens. Keep moving." Zara read it twice before. Nodding, she didn't smile. There was no celebration in survival. Not yet. There was still something unfinished inside her. Something quiet, like the breath before a storm. Back above the clouds, Whisper adjusted position again. The stealth ship had remained undetected, but only because Earth had spent decades developing this class of vessel in secret. It wasn't just fast. It wasn't just silent that it watched. And what it saw, Earth didn't ignore. A second Terran fleet had begun to gather. Not loud, not public, not official, but real. Each ship launched from different systems under false destinations. But they were headed to one place, a system the Varnock called home. Not for attack, but for presence. Because sometimes, presence says more than words. In the meantime, Captain Rowe watched the feeds from the scout teams. They had set up small observation points, blending into the trees. The Varnock movements had become clumsy. They were nervous, uncoordinated. "They've lost rhythm," Vega noted. "She broke their timing." "She's doing more than that," Rowe replied. "She's reshaping their confidence." And it was true. Inside the temporary command tent on the surface, the lead hunter was reviewing the scans. Movement in the north, then west, then back east. Strange signals, misdirection. His claws tapped against the edge of the console. "This should have been easy," he muttered. He didn't know Earth had already recorded his voice, that his transmission was no longer private. The scouts had cracked the channel hours ago. Every order, every mistake, it was all being catalogued. Zara reached the hilltop that evening, where a cluster of stones marked an ancient part of the forest. She recognized the structure from her earlier survey scans. Old ruins. Varnock once lived here long ago, before their cities rose in glass and metal. The place held energy-memory. It was here she chose to stop, not to rest, but to wait. She lit no fire, made no sound. She simply sat in the shadow of the stones, listening. She knew one of the scouts would find her here. It was only a matter of time, and just before midnight, the leaves rustled softly behind her, a voice low and clear. "You're early." Zara turned slightly. "So are you." It was Vega. Her suit shimmered faintly before turning fully visible. She stepped forward, kneeling beside her, whispers watching. "You've done more than expected." "I haven't done enough yet," Zara replied. Vega studied her face. It was calm, tired, but focused. They're scattered, confused. You've turned the game inside out. I didn't do it for that, Zara said. I did it to remember. Vega nodded slowly, and Earth does. Completely, they exchanged no more words. They simply sat in the quiet, surrounded by stone, under a sky filled with stars that neither of them trusted anymore. By morning, everything would change. The Varnak had already begun to question themselves. Some had stopped following orders. Some had refused to continue the hunt. A few had even asked the unthinkable, what if this human isn't like the others? But it wasn't that Zara was different, it was that she was exactly like all of them just finally seen. She hadn't fought with force, she had fought with memory, precision, silence, and silence was spreading. News had already begun to leak in secret channels. A Terran explorer taken, a hunt revealed, a stealth ship deployed. The Council hadn't responded publicly, but they were watching too. Zara had lit a signal that couldn't be ignored. Earth didn't declare war. It didn't demand attention. It arrived in shadows, and it waited. Just like her. Asterisk, the sky above Gralnine remained silent, but silence was never simple. Not anymore. Zara stood near the edge of a broken tree trunk, morning mist swirling around her boots. A single blink from her comlink meant everything had changed. It wasn't a rescue, it wasn't backup, it was confirmation. Earth had heard her, and Earth was answering. But how Earth answers is never how others expect. The Varnak believed Earth might send a request, maybe even a negotiation. That's how other species had responded to their hunts, in the past. Quiet anger. Forgettable words, time moving on. But this time, time didn't move forward. It held its breath. Above the jungle, Whisper remained hidden in the upper atmosphere. From its hull, a new signal was activated, a silent one. It didn't shout across the stars. It spoke directly to Earth's central command. 3 words blinked in cold green light on the screen. She is ready. Those 3 words moved faster than any fleet, and they changed everything. Across distant sectors, ships altered course without announcement. Patrol routes were quietly reshaped. Civilian traffic around the Varnak sector slowed, not by order but by instinct. Traders knew before anyone spoke. Something was unfolding, and it wasn't like before. On the jungle floor, Zara looked up. She didn't know the exact time or what the next step would be, but she felt it deep down in her bones. The moment when presence becomes purpose. Vega, the Terran scout who had remained closest to her, moved through the trees and crouched beside her. They've started asking questions, Vega said. Zara's voice was steady. Let them. In the Varnak base camp, confusion spread like wind in dry grass. Reports from the hunting teams were fragmented. Devices were not syncing. Some readings reported Zara in multiple locations at once. A hunter stepped into the command tent, holding a twisted piece of metal. This was found near the last signal location, not Varnak human design. The leader took it. It was small, sharp, reformed from pieces of a communication unit. Zara's work. A trap, a message. He turned it over, and a pattern emerged on its surface. Not words, not threats. A symbol. The emblem of Earth. Simple, silent, known. Suddenly, one of the Varnak techs rushed into the room, face pale. We've picked up movement. Not from her, from orbit. The leader froze. Council ships. The tech shook their head. No. Panic didn't come quickly, not with warriors, but doubt did. Doubt cracks armor faster than anything else. Back near the ruins, Zara and Vega studied a map etched into the dirt. It showed the terrain, Varnak paths, signal towers, and sensor range. Everything was nearly ready. You could leave now, Vega said. We can extract you quiet, no records. I didn't come here for escape, Zara replied. I came for truth. Vega looked at her carefully. Then you've already won. Earth knows. The galaxy will know soon. Zara paused, then asked, quietly, do they understand why? Vega didn't speak right away. Then she said, they will, because this wasn't just about one hunter and one survivor. This wasn't about strength. This was about remembrance. Zara had become the moment Earth remembered, what it meant to protect its own, no matter how far, no matter how small. Her silence had spoken louder than any battle. Her survival had told the story no council could ignore. The message was clear. Earth remembers. And when Earth remembers, it does not rush, it watches, it waits. And when the time comes, it moves not with anger, but with certainty. Inside the Whisper, a data packet was being finalized. It contained every log entry, every intercepted signal, every movement from Zara since she vanished. It included audio from Varnak laughter, maps of hunting zones, and silent footage of Zara climbing through mist with nothing but her hands and her will. The packet was not sent to the Varnok, it was sent to the Galactic Council, and though no announcement was made, the effect was instant. Every council member who saw the file paused. Every ally who received a copy asked the same question. Why would they risk all this? For one, and slowly, a new understanding began to form. Because Earth doesn't see one as small. Earth sees one life as enough. One voice, one signal, one reason to move. Back on the surface, Zara reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of cloth. worn, scorched, but whole, the insignia of the Aurora, the science ship she had arrived on. A reminder of what this had started as, curiosity, peace. Now, it had become something else, not a war, not revenge, but memory turned into motion. A low rumble moved through the clouds, the kind that isn't sound, but presence. No Varnock ships moved to meet it. No command was given to fire. For the first time in a long time, they felt what they had never expected: hesitation. Vega looked up toward the sound. Then back at Zara. They've seen the file. They'll try to explain. They can explain all they want, Zara said quietly, but the stars remember now. And as the sun rose behind her, casting long shadows across the ruins, Zara knew something had changed forever. Not just in the jungle. Not just in the Varnock system, but in every corner of the galaxy. Where Earth's symbol now meant more than a flag. It meant someone was watching. It meant no one forgotten. It meant never again. The stars looked the same, but they weren't. Not to the Varna. Not anymore. From the edge of their territory to the halls of the Galactic Council, the galaxy had changed. Not loudly, not through fire or force, but through something quieter, something far more difficult to ignore. One human had disappeared, and Earth had listened. Now Earth was watching. Zara stood beneath the ancient trees, her breath calm as the morning light filtered down through the mist. The jungle was still, the air quiet, not with fear, but with focus. She looked down at her. Hands scratched, weathered, steady, her fingers brushed the edge of her jacket. Where the insignia of the Aurora was still barely visible, a whisper came from behind. They're moving, slowly, no weapons drawn. It was Vega. She stepped out. From the forest line, her voice low, her posture relaxed. They've seen the council report, they've read the logs, they know now. Zara nodded. And they're sending someone, not a hunter. A voice far across the jungle. The Varnock command tent had transformed into something different. Screens were off, armor stored away. For the first time since the hunt began, the Varnock didn't speak in orders. They spoke in questions. Why did Earth come for her? She was just one. What made them care? The answers weren't easy. They had hunted others. Other species had mourned, but moved on. Even the council had never stepped in. But this time, something had shifted, because Earth had responded in a way they hadn't prepared for. It didn't threaten, it didn't attack. It remembered. And in that memory, Earth had moved carefully, quietly, but with full intention. A single human had become a signal to the entire galaxy. Humanity does not measure importance by number. One voice is enough. One life is worth remembering. A small gathering took place in the open forest clearing. No platforms, no flags, just stillness. Zara stood to one side, Vega beside her. Across from them, 3 Varnock representatives stepped forward. Not commanders, not hunters. Historians. Their leader, a tall figure with faded armor and silver markings, spoke first. We did not expect this. Zara didn't respond. He continued, we thought your kind would protest. File charges. Maybe withdraw from trade. That's what others did. Still, she said nothing. The historian hesitated, then finally asked the question that had haunted them since Earth's signal reached the stars. Why did you stay? Zara looked at him direct.com. Because you forgot. He blinked. Forgot what? She paused for only a second. That people are not numbers. That life is not something to play with. That silence does not mean weakness. The historian lowered his head. Vega stepped forward. Earth doesn't erase. It records, and when it sees something wrong, it doesn't answer with noise, it answers with presence. The Varnock stood in silence. Back in orbit, Whisper transmitted a final packet to Earth's Central Command. It held the closing entries of the mission, Zara's confirmation of survival, her decision to stay, the Varnock's change in tone, and the final meeting recorded by drone. Nothing edited, nothing dramatized. Just truth. Earth's leaders didn't call it victory. They didn't call it punishment. They called it what it was. The moment the stars remembered. For the first time in Varnock history, the hunting program was dissolved. All trophies, recordings, and broadcasts were deleted. The words growl sport were removed from archives, and the hunting grounds were repurposed for research and remembrance, not because they were forced, because they understood. And far from Growl 9, in the quiet backrooms of the Galactic Council, the story spread not through news, but through whispers. Did you hear what Earth did? Did you hear about the human who survived? Did you know they never raised a weapon? And still, no one dared touch them. Zara returned to Whisper after 20 days in the jungle, not because she gave up, but because her message was delivered. She stood in the observation deck as the planet faded from view. Captain, Ro approached. You could stay on Earth. Rest, live quietly. Zara looked out at the stars, her voice soft. I don't want quiet. I want memory. Ro smiled gently. There's a place for people like you. In the history, Earth writes next. As the stars shifted, and Graal 9 became a distant blue dot, the universe remained still, but only for a moment, because something had been planted across those stars. Not fear, not anger, something greater, a message wrapped in silence. Spoken by survival and remembered by all who watched. She was hunted for fun, but humanity never forgets.